Hello, my name is Ian Williamson, and I am the Dean of the Paul Merage School of Business at the University of California, Irvine. And welcome to another episode of the Dean's Thought Leaders series. It is my great pleasure to have with us today Josh Childress, who is the CEO of Landsphere. Landsphere is a LA-based real estate investment organization focusing on revitalizing communities of color. Josh also has this great experience of playing professional basketball for 15 years in the NBA in Greece, in Australia, and Japan, and has also spent 10 years as a venture capitalist. Josh is also the founder of the Josh Childress Foundation. It's a great pleasure to have Josh with us today, and he's going to share some of his insights around investment and also community revitalization. So Josh, thank you very much. It's really a pleasure to have you joining on the series. And I think I'll just jump right in. And I think one of the questions that many of the people would like to know a little bit more about is Landsphere. And so perhaps can you give me a little more insight about Landsphere and also why you were motivated to found the organization?
Yeah, first and foremost, I appreciate you, Dean Williamson, for allowing me to come on the Dean's Thought Leader series. This is a great platform, and I'm very thankful for the opportunity. And relative to Landsphere Group, we really saw an opportunity to invest in under-resourced communities. I partnered with my former college teammate and roommate, Justin Davis, in our endeavor. And on the heels of the Opportunity Zone legislation, we found that there was going to be a massive amount of capital flowing into some of these under-resourced areas. But by and large, the community stakeholders would not see the benefit of that, either through gentrification or through, just lack of social and upward mobility via the channels that were going to come in and invest capital. And so for us, it was important to try and become the conduit for that capital, so that we had the community's benefit and kind of I'd say interest in mind. And so with that, we founded Landspire Group really with the intent to get into these communities and impact change through real estate development and investment.
And what types of real estate are you interested in or are you focused on?
So we focus on multifamily investment. We have about 4 or 5 projects in our pipeline right now, mostly development opportunities, and we'll continue to expand that over the years as we build our platform, get access to more capital, and become, I'd say, more well-known within the space. But right now we have a project in Compton, California, which is where I'm originally from, 75 units there. We just invested in a 91-unit project here in Bellflower, California, and have a couple others in Nevada and one here in Newport Beach. So we've been active. We want to continue to remain active and build out a more robust pipeline that is investing in communities of color, impacting change, creating opportunities, providing programming for some of these areas via, financial literacy, childcare, job training, things of that sort. So, creating value outside of just, developing units and collecting rent.
Got it. That sounds great. So, I think maybe that's a great segue into this bigger question that I've talked to a lot of people about over the last several months. In that, what we're seeing more and more is society is making a call for businesses and business leaders to really be proactive in dealing with some of the major challenges we're seeing, social issues. So injustice, discrimination, access, participation. And I'd love to get your thoughts on, what do you see as the role or responsibility of business or business leaders in these particular domains?
I think the biggest role of businesses and business leaders in this domain is to put your money where your mouth is, to be proactive. When you think back to last summer and what happened, in Minnesota, George Floyd, you saw a lot of businesses and corporations come out and say, we're going to make sure that we do X, Y, Z and donate and invest in Black and brown communities and do all these things. And a lot of them were publicity stunts. How can you actually, get in these communities, invest, provide capital, provide resources, but also provide opportunity? When you look at most of the C-suites, across the country, you don't see people of color, in true I'd say, decision-making positions. You have tiers, right? And, the people of color may be on, the second to last or last tier relative to, being able to actually make impactful decisions and or have capital in hand to do those things. And so I think that, creating more opportunities for that and actually being proactive and, doing what you say you're going to do is truly what, more businesses and business leaders need to be mindful of.
I mean, I think this is one of the great things about Landsphere, right? You've gone beyond thinking about how we're going to do something good, but really thinking about the business model at the core is about the foundational component of enhancing well-being. And that not having that separation between the business and the social outcome, I think it's a fantastic innovation.
Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you. And we've been very mindful of that, wanting to make sure that, we can create sustainable change.
Yeah.
Can I get into a community, bring a beautiful, nice new development, but also help, the community stakeholders, let's say, uplift themselves, empower themselves, to move beyond that, right? It's great to come home to a nice, new, wonderful unit, but also how can I sustain that and build from that so that, I can, create a better opportunity for the next generation. So, the cyclical issues with poverty that we face in this country are, very real and very relevant. How can we make that shift? And, we're a small group, but, we're trying to do our part to impact that change at the very minimum at the grassroots level where in areas that we grew up in.
So as you've been developing Landsphere, of course, you haven't been immune to what's been going on around the world. And certainly the last 18 to 24 months has been nothing but disruption after disruption after disruption. And I'd be curious to get your sense of, how is your sector more broadly, and maybe even your organization, been impacted by this? What have been some of the things you've learned in trying to adapt and cope? What has been the experience for you?
Yeah, you mentioned that, and I think back to last March, 8 days before the pandemic started, we launched our first fund.
Oh, wow.
So you can imagine, three people who, are first time fund managers for a project in Las Vegas, going out and trying to raise capital. And then 8 days later, this happens, right? And so that in itself was a incredible challenge for us, and we were resilient and were able to get through that. And fully raise our fund, which was phenomenal for our company. But relative to just the disruption that's happened in commercial real estate, it's happened in a bunch of different ways. I think, demographic shifts as it relates to COVID and people moving out of densely populated areas, that's accelerated. You've seen markets like, Nevada and Texas and Florida, really just catch on fire, and that was accelerated by people moving out of LA and San Francisco and New York and some of these other densely populated areas, into more affordable places, that didn't necessarily have maybe the same restrictions that some of these. Even Orange County experienced that, and a wave of people moving from LA. So that's one component. I think in addition to that, from a technology perspective, obviously, everybody's become more connected, right? And that's can either be a negative or a positive relative to how you operate your business, but Zoom fatigue is, has hit us all.
It's
right?
real.
It's real. But with that, I think the technology related to commercial real estate investing has gotten better. AI has, accelerated in its application in the commercial real estate space relative to, how people are, capturing data, sourcing data, planning for, future demographic shifts and things that are happening in markets. So, that's happened. And, we aren't necessarily in the single family space, but, the price of housing has gone up exponentially. And that's forcing more people to become renters, which, helps us in our business. But, the last 18, 24 months has been incredibly disruptive. Some good, some bad. But, you make of it what you can, you pivot as you see fit, and, try and make the best decisions possible.
Yeah. Well, I think this is the experience we've all certainly as an education institution, we've had to rethink a lot of foundational things about what does it actually mean to do what we do.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's a great segue to another, maybe more personal question, right? You talked about how your organization has had to pivot and transition, but you yourself, I think, are just a perfect example of a person that's made many different transitions over the course of your life. Not all of them are the common ones we typically see. And so I'd really be curious about how you managed those transitions. What was the processes in your mind about how you were navigating that, were they planned? Were they sort of opportunistic? What has been your story around that?
That's a good question. Great question. I've always tried to be thoughtful in how I operate in life. Growing up from humble beginnings in Compton, athletics was a way that I was able to get out of that situation, right? And I have a great family system and support system, so I don't want to detract from that. But just to be frank, I wouldn't have been able to afford to go to Stanford, without sports, right? And so, I was able to go to Stanford, spend 3 years there, and then transition into the NBA. And that transition was another massive one. Coming from Southern California to Northern California to Atlanta, and first day off the plane, I'm seeing things that I've never seen before. I'm seeing Confederate flags drive by. I'm seeing, segregation that I hadn't seen in California. So you learn about your surroundings. You understand, kind of how to navigate it as best you can. And then from there, I ended up going over to Greece. And I did that at a time where people didn't really understand why an NBA player, kind of in his prime, would do that. And that transition was, about me trying to, find more out about myself. Can I do this? Can I leave my comfort zone, go to a country that is not predominantly English speaking, and excel? And I think with that, I created a little bit of a comfort around American basketball players leaving, the U.S. to go play in other countries.
I certainly think you were a trailblazer.
Thank you. And, that experience taught me a lot about myself. I got to experience a different culture, which is, I think, a big part of what life is about, right? Going out and exploring and learning new things, exposing yourself to different people, because that shapes you as a person. And from there, I bounced around to a few other different countries. And then my latest transition kind of into this business space has been phenomenal. I've met some of the greatest people, and I met you, and had my basketball career and now this business, career not happened, we would have never crossed paths. And so, taking advantage of opportunities, throughout this transition has been a big, big thing that I've tried to do, but also just making the most of opportunities and, retiring from professional sports and pivoting into another space and doing it, I think, fairly well to this point, is a testament to just my support system and work ethic.
Got it. I think it's, as you said, it's important in corporations to kind of walk the talk, but I think at an individual level as a leader, it's also inspirational to see you walk the talk, right? In terms of how you've just been open to change in your own personal life. It really is quite inspiring.
Yeah. I mean, you get, a lot of people get caught in the rat race of life, and I just like to shake it up sometimes a little bit.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So one question I'd like to ask you is your thoughts around leadership and maybe more specifically, what you think the leaders of business tomorrow going forward, so if I'm thinking about on Monday, we just brought in a new incoming class of freshmen. If you were talking with them around how to prepare themselves for being leaders in the future, what are the types of things that you would think they should be thinking about, and how would you recommend they prepare themselves?
That's another great question. I'd say, first and foremost, intellectual humility, I think, is important. There's a bunch of smart people here, at UC Irvine, but how can you apply that in a way that people can relate to you and want to follow your lead? And so, being who you are, and intellectually curious, but also intellectually humble, I think, helps others gravitate towards you as a leader, and helps galvanize the troops, if you will, to follow suit. And so, that's one that I would definitely suggest. In addition to that, obviously diversity is a big component of the social landscape of business in this country in general, and embracing that is crucial. I think gone are the days where the good old boys club thing is acceptable, and you have to be open to change and embracing diversity within your corporate culture, in your everyday life, right? I mean, it's important for all of us to understand that we don't know everything and don't have all the answers, but there are other individuals across cultures, across genders, across orientations that are just as intelligent and valuable to corporations as we are, and how can we bring everybody together to make the most impact. And obviously, I think one other is just thinking through the ESG component of everything, and how to best navigate that. And I'm not an expert in that by any means, but it's something that I'm now learning about. It's something that I never thought about, and so being mindful of that, as you go out and build your business and try to create impact in whatever capacity is going to be super important.
I think that's great advice. Sounds like I have some work to do in terms of training them. Josh, thank you very much for taking the time. Congratulations on all the success that you've had with your ventures. Congratulations on all the successful transitions you've had in your life, and certainly we look forward to seeing what that next transition looks like.
I appreciate it, Dean Williamson.
My pleasure.
All right.
Thank you very much for again joining us for the Dean's Thought Leaders Series.